You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey y'all, you're listening to Cards to the Moon, and the gang is all back to record episode 33. John, I know you're not 100%, so if you just have to keep your answers to a short yes or no, true or false, it's all good. But we know you're famous for your tangents and your that being said statements, so we'll see if we can actually keep you off the mic for long. All right, off the top, I want to lead with something you sent over, John, to our WhatsApp chat earlier today, which is that the PSA 9 of the Lebron James 2020 Panini Prizm Gold, which is his Kobe tribute dunk card, if you guys remember, sold recently for a little more than $200,000. And you mentioned that sounded kind of insane for a modern sports card, and also the fact that it isn't a PSA 10, it's a PSA 9. So I'm going to throw it to Hyung, actually. What do you think about that recent sale?
Well, I think initial reaction was for all of us is like insane. Where's the logic kind of in that? Because I think John sent over a Brady BGS 10 as well. In comparison, that went for like 204,000 as well, right? So
yeah.
But I could like I said, the market's interesting. You see a lot of people that are in different investment categories. $200,000 for a modern card for us. For the normal people, it's insanity almost, right? But I think you starting to see a lot of people and a lot of, bigger sales because people also believe in the market and they have potential, profits in crypto that they're trying to maybe, unload or whatever it may be. But I think we're just in a different class at that point, right? But I could see that, overpay now for a potentially an iconic card and record-breaking sales in the future, right? So, but yeah, it's a tough one just because, it's 2000. That's what is it like his 20th year card or something, or whatever it is. Yeah. It's just like kind of ridiculous that it's going for $200K, right? Is it actually worth that? Probably not, right? Will there be another record-breaking sale? Probably.
Yeah. Both true. Yeah.
Do you guys know if there's a PSA 10 of that card?
Do we know? I don't know.
I do not, but whoever does have it is absolutely stoked.
Laughing, yeah. I'd have to assume there isn't a PSA 10, and maybe this is like that Spider-Man situation where the buyer was like confident this is the best one out there. But yeah, it was originally posted by, I think it was either Sports Card Nonsense IG or Slap Stocks, and they're comparing for $204,000. Would you take the gold, the LeBron gold, or the Brady rookie SP numbered at a 1250, which I think is a beautiful card. And that was a BGS 10. And that's a paper Upper Deck SP. Like, that's a crazy grade for that card. So I thought
Brady all day.
Oh, Brady, like no question. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, like, number one, I think that's such an insane price for, I get it's like an iconic picture. I swear I'm not being a hater, but the picture, a LeBron hater, but the picture just reminds me of like a micro machine, like the 90s toy, those little micro machines.
A micro machine.
Yeah, like it's like this like a super, like it's like a super mini LeBron. Like, I don't know, it doesn't do it for me, but I get why people would be all over it. It's the gold, like everyone's on gold right now, and it's LeBron, Laker jersey, so it with the iconic photo. So I get it, but I think if it was record breaking, it was a PSA 10. I think that makes more sense to me. The PSA 9, you got to be a little bit wary because the moment that 10 comes out, like, what does that mean for your 9, right? Because I don't think the 10's worth like $1 million. Like, if you're going to use a multiplier, right? So,
well, that should keep people ripping, shouldn't it? Like, if you think about it, like, man. You could, like, it's gonna if LeBron's going for $200K, like, is it worth ripping at that point if you're, ripping $1,000 hobby box, right?
Right.
So I think this is where, maybe, there's some incentive to rip at that point. And I think there's that's what keeps that balance too,
Right.
of ripping and essentially gambling, right? Mm-hmm. Ripping is essentially gambling, but if you have a high prize point, like $1 million card, that might change things, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like holders of that hobby box, it's a great investment piece now, right? Like look at what you can rip out of there. You can rip out a $200,000 card, right? And we're not even talking, like the LaMelos and Anthony Edwards like golds, like
right, yeah.
Even like those aside, there's another card that's worth even more, which is insane. So our boy Andrew just got one over the holidays, so shout out Andrew.
Nice.
And hold on to that thing with dear life. Don't rip it open.
The 2020 Prizm, yeah, for sure. Well, I think A, John's definitely a LeBron hater, and B, with the amount of parallels there are in modern cards, I feel like the same thing that's happening to base is going to happen to parallels. Not every parallel to the same degree, but I think there will be a general correction just because there's just a lot of them. Like that's the perception, in my opinion. And that's what I'm afraid of, when investing heavily in modern parallel cards. But that being said, the gold LeBron Kobe Prizm, I think it's a work of art. I like it. I really like it. I want to actually pick up the silver just for my PC because I think it's a pretty sweet looking card. And, I wouldn't pay $200K for the gold PSA 9 personally, but could I see something like that take off in value? Sure. It's not out of the realm of possibility for me. So yeah, I guess time will tell to see which way it goes. Definitely seems like a crazy amount to regular collectors like us and to a lot of others. But it's an interesting topic to debate for sure. All right, with that, let's move on then to hobby headlines. So due to the bad audio, we didn't air the episode we recorded last week when we did talk about some hobby predictions for 2022. But again, if you haven't already, you can read the whole transcript of our discussion, which I put up online at 5cardguys.com. And again, I'll put the link in the show notes below. But for this week's episode, I thought we could expand on our 2022 hobby predictions. And kind of like what we do with our Pick One segments at the end of each show, maybe we can offer some hot takes on what we think could happen in 2022. So these are hot takes. So it could sound crazy to some people out there, but it'll be fun to see if it actually happens. That's the fun part of making these hot takes, and then hitting one once in a while and saying you're the first to have made that prediction. All right, so I can lead off just to get things rolling. So my hot take is I think in 2022, with Fanatics taking over Topps, Relic patch cards are going to make a huge comeback. All right, so right now we know Relic patches are pretty much useless. When you rip open the hobby box, I hate those hobby boxes that says you can get an auto or a Relic.
And you usually get a Relic.
Yeah, exactly. I only rip hobby boxes that guarantee autos. I'm not taking that risk for $200-$300 for a hobby. But we know those Relic patch cards aren't worth much, and it's probably because Topps and Panini just saturated the market with these jerseys and other relics that aren't even guaranteed to be game used. There was controversy about that, right? But I think Fanatics taking over Topps, Fanatics being in the hobby space changes all of that because, correct me if I'm wrong, they're known even before they got into the hobby space for their memorabilia, right? And if you go on their website, they have pens with game used dirt of certain marquee games, and game used equipment like the catcher's protection gear for sale. So I think Fanatics is actually creative enough to revive the Relic patch cards, which they can do now for upcoming Topps baseball, right? Now that they acquire Topps, and even for Formula One and UEFA soccer, because that's part of the Topps deal, right? So there you go. Relic patch cards are going to make a major comeback in 2022. Yeah, what do you guys think?
Geez, it would only take 25 years. When we were kids, we used to love. I used to love patches and relics, and I thought that was the big hit, but obviously the hobby thinks different. But I like it. I don't think it'll happen until relics have such a tough situation in baseball. It's just people just don't like it. So I think Fanatic personally needs to, build that kind of like brand still, or I guess if they're gonna do it, use a little more, I guess, creativity on their end. But I think it's gonna take time for them to kind of be able to unfold all that and get the collectors or hobbies attention with it. So I think it might take a couple years, Clark, but I like it. I do like it.
It's a hot take.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will agree with your sentiment, but it has to be something really cool. If they just come out, I think if they just come out with like game used glove or like game used dirt, you said like dirt, whatever, like I don't think that's gonna work. But if it's they mark down the specific game that it came out of, or if it was like Ohtani like breaks some kind of record, hits 75 home runs or something, and it was the like the record breaking game, and it's his batting glove and a patch of that batting glove. Like if it's specific like that, I think that could definitely work. Like it has to be something really special. So again, if Fanatics is gonna be creative, they got resources. They got the catalog of all of these, a database of all of their goods. So they can do it. I think they can pull it off. So I think there is a chance. Yeah, for sure. But for me, that it has to asterisk with that leg.
Yeah.
Something special has to be added on top.
That makes sense for sure. Cool. Who wants to go next?
I'll shoot. There's a couple, I guess on the broken audio, I was big on fractional shares. I think 2022 fractional shares will be a bigger thing, a boom almost, because it's bringing in, I guess, non-collectors, more investors in the hobby, people who want an app or a program that can essentially make those investments easy. They don't need to necessarily hold the cards. This is where vaults and stuff come in handy. So I think collectibles is definitely onto something, but I guess another hot take that I'm going with 2022 and sticking with the whole Fanatics news is that Fanatics in 2022 will buy a grading company. What do you guys think?
Whoa.
I was thinking about this and I was just like,
wow.
Hey, this would definitely stir up the news.
Right. I mean, I think we touched on this before. I think they should, and I feel like they will. My thoughts got deflated when we saw the Josh Luber interview where he's like, no, we're not doing grading. Like, let the graders be graders and stuff like that. So that kind of deflated my thought. But who knows, man? Fanatics they got magic tricks up their sleeves right now. They can do whatever they want, right? So, I think for me, something like a buyout of like BGS.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
Yeah, like that makes a lot of sense. But if not, let's say they just buy a company that knows how to do the printing presses and the encapsulament of the cases, and they know how to somebody within the business knows what they're doing. I always said it's best to start fresh, like some of these newer companies, because you don't have the existing database that you can't really break off of, right? Like that's PSA's problem right now, is that they can't go back and re-look at their old grades and like change it, or like people have been begging PSA to do PSA 9.5, but they can't do that either because there's a whole bunch of PSA 9s that deserve a 9.5, right? So like there's a lot of these companies are stuck doing what they have to do because they can't go back and they can't take their entire database and change it. They're stuck as is, right? So I think starting fresh has such a huge advantage, and for a big company like Fanatics to start fresh, I think it could work, but it's a big undertaking, right? So I mean, this year, that's a hot take. With that being said, but I could see it. I could see that magic card coming out, like the Euchre Trump or whatever, and who knows, man.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
No, I like it too. I could totally see that happening. Even as soon, if we did an episode on January 1st or January 2nd, and one of our hot takes was Fanatics is going to buy out Topps this year, right. And the next week it happens, it sounds insane now, but I feel like with that deal, it almost seems like anything is possible, right? Like
Right.
it's like the domino effect.
For
One
sure.
just knocks one over, and then we're going, and so I think it makes sense to me. And John, you mentioned it. I was thinking the exact same thing, that Beckett's probably a good prime target. PSA's kind of doesn't have to do that, it doesn't have to be bought out, and SGC is probably good where they're at, building momentum. But Beckett just seems to be stalled,
Right.
and they still have the brand. Like, I love Beckett graded cards for some of my personal collection and some of my investment cards. So they still have that brand recognition. And the good thing about acquiring a grading company is, I know the issues that you mentioned about not starting fresh, but there's a lot of pros as well, right? You don't, you can really take off with what Beckett's already have, and brand is a strong thing to have,
For
and
sure.
I think that'll be a smart acquisition for me. So 2022, yeah, nothing surprises me anymore, man.
Yeah, and in 1 year nowadays is like 3 years in regular
Yeah,
life, right? So
true.
yeah, things are happening quick, and that's why I threw it out there because I could see it becoming a possibility. Is it gonna happen? Probably not, but it makes sense because for me, if I'm Fanatics, I'm gonna try to capitalize on kind of like crossover and grow Whitley and being able to provide an all in service, from start to finish, right? So I think they're trying to make it for the end consumer, and especially I think there's so many. I've always said this. There's so many issues with grading companies. So there needs to be some order in that, and it's just a matter of time before someone that knows what they're doing can really capitalize in and be able to make it a little neater or tidier. A lot of gray areas still. So yeah, I could definitely see that being a possibility.
Yeah, and you mentioned, like, Josh Luber mentioned that grading companies will do their own thing, so maybe the possibility isn't as high as we might think. But then again, I could totally see Michael Rubin making that decision.
Yeah.
That's
The
true.
higher ups making that decision easily. So we'll see. Johnny, you have any 2022 hot takes?
Yeah, I got a couple. So first one, I think in 2022, vintage, and I'm talking like pre 1980, is gonna make a huge comeback. I'm gonna go out on a limb. I mean, for the vintage collectors, it's not going out on a limb. They're probably yelling from the mountaintops.
Right.
But I'm gonna go out on a limb and say your collection or your portfolio, the best performer will be your vintage cards in 2022.
Mm,
So you'll see the best growth or best return, whatever you want to call it,
yeah.
is going to come from vintage cards.
Okay.
I could see that as a possibility because for me, it's you're seeing the market's correcting, and I feel like vintage is undervalued still. I think there's a lot of room to grow,
Yeah.
and obviously we even talked about it. How could a modern card of a LeBron, sell for the same price as I guess it's not vintage, but something that's of age and can be more true to that $204,000 value, right? So I think with
Right.
vintage, there's a lot of cards that are undervalued because it's the last to kind of come because everybody's still on the modern chase and what's relevant today, right? So I think you see strong sales every day with vintage too. People trading, it's starting to get more popular. It seems like that's a lot of people's end goals. Vintage. It's not necessarily, I'm flipping vintage. It's those that's one of my grail cards or my goal is to get like, a certain card that, I'm just going to lock in the safe or pass on to generations. That kind of, I see a lot of that theme repeating. So I could see a market correction coming both, on modern cards, like we said, kind of like down and some vintage cards up. So yeah, I like that take, John.
Yeah, and I say that because like we've been talking for a number of weeks now, but modern cards are in like such a weird space, right? Where like people are talking about base is trash and like parallel cards are trash and like I don't know where doesn't seem like modern cards have a strong foothold in collectors' eyes and or investors' eyes right now. So you can kind of tell right now in the hobby space that people are wandering their eyes somewhere to see what's the next big trend. And for me, vintage makes a lot of sense, right? I don't know if like modern vintage has enough strength to catch on fire. Like I'm talking like 94, Paul Pierce, the GOATs like Kobe will be there, but like Vince Carter, Paul Pierce, like even going to like Patrick Ewing and like Charles Barkley, like I don't know if that space has enough strength either, but we're talking like really start to push it back. Like
the Hank Aaron's, the
like
Mays.
Exactly, yeah. Earliest would be like Larry Bird Magic, but then yeah, Hank Aaron, like Bill Russell, stuff like that. I think could have like big time legs.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen. I like to take generally, but again, I don't know if it's going to happen this year. And I really agree with your 1 point, Hyung, about vintage being the end goal for a lot of collectors. And what I think might happen is I think the hobby's going to continue to grow in 2022, 2023. I think a lot of these people coming into the hobby are going to be younger. They're going to be more investor type collectors rather than just pure hobbyists. And as a result, I think they're going to look for more modern cards and, throw into the mix Fanatics taking over Topps, hopefully improving the product overall. I think newer collectors will be looking forward to those cards and buying those cards. So I think there'll be more eyes and more money thrown into newer cards. I'm kind of bullish on that. But I think as more people come into the hobby, they'll do their research like the rest of us, and they'll see, there are these vintage cards that it makes a lot of sense to buy if I'm able to flip a lot of these newer cards and I have more cash flow. And maybe, I want one or two of these vintage cards in the bank as a longer term investment. I think that's a play for a lot of people, a lot of collectors, especially the investor types. So, even if you're younger and, you're not as familiar as Willie Mays or Hank Aaron or a lot of these vintage goats, I think people just educate themselves while they're in the hobby, and it's only a matter of time that they, even investor types, will begin to look at vintage as a smart and safe investment in the hobby. So yeah, I could totally see it happening. I still think it's like a 4 or 5 year play for that to really see vintage take off, but it's a good one.
Yeah. My other one is, this is not really a hot take. I think everybody kind of sees this coming, but I think HGA is going to fold in 2022. And I feel bad. You don't want to root against a company. I think they came out blazing. They did a great job, but I think the wider picture, and it seems like some of the operations and stuff was a little bit sloppy, and it's really been hurting them. And it looks like they're going on a downward spiral. I feel bad, but seems like writing's on the wall. Like they're not going to be around after 2022.
That's I know grading companies are a touchy subject, and I know I know HGA is getting some nasty press, and obviously I'm not gonna speak about that too much, because for me, I come from an entrepreneur background. I understand why they started their company, and that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get people hating on the company. If they mess up, there's always gonna be a target on your back. But I will say this: I am part of the HGA on the Facebook forum, and they did say that they were making a lot of internal changes, whatever that does mean. But they do have a heavy investor involved now that is helping them kind of clean up the mess. Whether that actually happens, who's to? I guess we'll just see that. But it's going to be interesting with HGA, and another company, FCG, is another company that I actually am for. I'm using their service currently. I sent out and they're getting a lot of bad press as well. But I'm gonna say both grading companies are gonna be strong this year. Yeah, but we'll see. Yeah, I just think that for me it's they have a bad rep and stuff like that. But for me, that's the growing pains of any company, any new company, and it's a matter of how do they respond and how do they, come out of this, whether they let that be the end of them or they pivot and become stronger because of it, right? So, I am optimistic with the grading companies. I think it's needed personally, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm more towards John. I think HGA is going to fold more. It's more likely that's going to happen than Thrive. And I'm not rooting against them either. Like personally, I don't like the look of HGA, but even take that personal bias aside, I think it's just the competition is getting more fierce. Like you feel that, like, oh, there's another grading company, and I think it's all about speed at this point. And it's at this point where it's not late, but it's not early either anymore to kind of build your own grading company. So like that first mover advantage isn't there for newer companies. So I think, I don't know, I think this is the competitive landscape is pretty fierce, and I think this past year or the year before, like I think SGC probably took the biggest leap in my opinion in terms of getting their brand recognition out there, more trust in that brand. So they kind of had that third spot in my opinion.
I will say this, I am a customer who is looking for that type of service, and I believe there are a lot of people looking for alternatives. Like for me right now, based on some of my cards I'm submitting, PSA doesn't make sense. BGS doesn't make sense. Even SGC doesn't make sense. Like for me, the resale values aren't there for SGC, especially on the 9.5s and 10s. That on some cards, yes, they are. So for me, it was like I sent a lot of First Chrome to FCG, and to me, it was a service that I just want transparent grading. Just like I want to pay minimum, but I want to know what I have. That way I could make the decisions whether or not in the future to send to PSA. But the problem is there's no grading companies that offer that. But these are the grading companies that offer that void. And this is what people look for. Forget about resale value for a minute. Because you're trying to build a brand credibility for PSA, BGS. You're not going to catch up to them. It's going to take forever for values to catch up. But if you are transparent and clear with your intentions and grading, and you're selling a product and you're growing constantly, which I believe a brand like FCG is, I believe that there's a huge demand for that. Especially for me, I submitted 50 cards to SGC. I went through them. I said this would be a good fit for SGC price point wise, but then I still had 55 cards that I wasn't happy sending with SGC. I actually sent it to FCG because for me, at that price point, I'm getting a transparent grade, right? And I think they're doing a great job personally because it's in a space where you're going to get so much hate. But in reality, as long as you're fulfilling the consumer's needs, you're constantly growing. And I believe that both companies have that niche market still, and even a chance to grow with that, because it's not necessarily all about ROI. Right. And I know some people might disagree. Trust me, I have probably more PSA slabs than that most average person. I have a lot of PSA slabs. I have a lot of BGS slabs. I have probably like one SGC slab before, obviously, the SGC submission we submitted recently. And I have 0 FCG slabs. Like I'm looking for a service that I need. Bottom line, I don't care. Can PSA provide it? No, unfortunately. Can BGS at $250 a pop? No, they can't. So what are my next alternatives, right? So that's kind of like where my, I guess, head is at with kind of like these small niche companies. As long as they could provide the grade that I need at the price point I need, I think they're providing great service, to be honest. Yeah.
I think everything you say makes sense. And I will agree on like FCG looks like they're making a lot of ground in a little niche pocket with like the Bowman first crowd.
Right.
But I feel bad for HGA, but it's not, to me, it's not looking good. But you said there's like maybe a big investor, but then at the same time, you guys kind of mentioned at the beginning, there's a space here that like somebody can kind of capture this sort of like 4th place, 5th place. Let's not forget CSG. I think they're going to make some huge moves in 2022 with Jay-Z's group, right? Like they pumped a lot of money into it. I heard like a brand new label is coming out, like they're going to change up like the branding and stuff like that. So if they come in and swoop in and take kind of like anything other than SGC and PSA customers, that's another huge one, right? That's going to really hurt like HGA's, attempt at a rebuild. So I think all of that really goes against like puts their backs against the wall, like HGA's backs against the wall to try and recover from 2021. So it's going to be tough. Like, yeah, it's a hot take, but yeah, kind of maybe not a hot take. I think that's kind of what everyone's kind of feeling. So
yeah, that'll be an interesting one to see how it unfolds for sure. Because grading is going to be a huge part of the hobby, right? And you're right. You know what? I really like when you made that point to me off air, Hyung, about using FCG the way you're using it. It makes a lot of sense to me. That yeah, you want to see what the value of your card is, and if you trust in their grading process and the price point's right, like it's not expensive, then that makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, I like all of our hot takes. Only time will tell to see which ones become reality or which ones we were way off on. But regardless of what happens, I think we can all agree 2022, it's going to be a great year for the hobby. All right, let's wrap up today's episode with our weekly segment, Pick One. And this is going to actually be a repeat of the one we did in our unaired episode, so it won't go to waste. So let's lead off with Hyung as usual.
All right, let's do this. Get back into baseball mode. I want to do this for that $500 to $750 budget for those looking for a card, particularly in baseball. I got Fernando Tatis versus Vladdy, and the cards that I've picked were the Rainbow Foil PSA 10 of Fernando Tatis Jr. Versus the Topps Chrome of Vladimir Guerrero Xfractor PSA 10. So both go for around $750, which I think is a pretty good deal personally. I've seen where these cards can go, and they've retracted quite a bit, and I think it's a great buy at that $500 to $750 budget. But my question is, which one would you guys take between the two?
Yeah, I agree. I think both are great buys. I'm gonna pick Guerrero Xfractor, and I'm slightly biased. Normally, you guys know me, I'd probably pick Tatis, but I'm my collection is a little bit Tatis'd out right now, and I have no Guerrero at the moment, so I am personally actually looking for Guerrero, but aside from the slight bias, I think of the big boys in baseball, and Hyung, you and Clark have been saying this forever, and I agree. He has a lot of room to grow. Like, I still think he's getting a little bit disrespected. Like Soto's at a certain, like a certain floor in terms of price point. Acuna, Tatis, Ohtani, like the big boys. And I think Vladdy is too behind in terms of pricing versus those guys. Like, he has the capability of trying for the Triple Crown again. Like, that's how special of a talent this guy is, right? It wasn't just like a 1-year fluke. Like, this guy might try to contend for that thing year in and year out. That's how special of a talent. And you talk to major league scouts, and like they'll probably say the same thing. I'm not just we're not sitting here like talking out of our asses. We're actually getting these opinions from these big time major league scouts that talk about Vladdy like on a day-to-day basis, right? So I think Vladdy's a great buy, and the Xfractor is number one. Eye appeal, beautiful looking card, Topps Chrome, pretty decent, like in terms of like low pop. Yeah, I'm going Guerrero.
Nice. What about you, Clark?
It's funny because I'm biased the other way. I have a first Bowman Chrome auto of Vladdy, so I'm like, I want a Tatis card that's a sweet Tatis card, right? So I have that slight bias, but I think the last time I checked, or the last time we looked into this, the Tatis card that you mentioned, which one was it again?
The Rainbow Foil. The
Rainbow Foil.
Paper, yeah.
I think that probably had a higher peak, or the one that sold for the most. And I always look for that as well when things are pretty even. What the high point was, and if they're both down, and I believe in both players, I feel like it could get back to that high point, at some point in the future.
Right.
So that's probably why I'm going to go with Tatis. And if you're looking at the potential of each player, yeah, both of them are sky high potential. But in terms of team, like as much as I love the Jays, as much as I love to root for the Blue Jays, Padres with their new head coach, and they disappointed this past season, but I feel like they're going to be an automatic contender again this year. And if they're going to make the World Series, Tatis has got to be at the heart of it, right? So I think he's going to be he's going to get a value boost that way. Just betting on the Padres as an organization as well. But you know what? That being said, I agree with you too, totally, John. That I feel like Vladdy is, there's potential for his cards generally to grow more. Like this past weekend, even I actually was yesterday or the day before on Golden, an orange refractor first Bowman Chrome Auto of Vladdy, PSA 10, sold for $76,000. Like that doesn't seem as high as it should be. You know what I mean? Like it seems, it seems like that could easily be a 100. If he does what he did this year, that's easily a 100K card next year
for sure. I think that's part of when we said it. It's like we've seen Vladdy was the number one prospect in baseball, so his prices were outrageous for the hobby at the time before the 2020 boom, and his prices were astronomical at that time. And in his first rookie year, after he kind of disappointed that season, I think a lot of people like literally cashed out on Vlad because they waited since 2016 for this number one prospect, and they thought he was going to do what he did this year in his first year, and that didn't happen, and his prices tanked. And this is where I think the buying opportunity of a lifetime was there. Is like people were loading up on Vladdy. I did myself as well, because for me, it was I truly believe in Vladdy long term, right? So I think that's what you're seeing, to be honest. It's still people are hesitant. The people that sold have been on Vladdy for a long time, and they're probably just happy to cash out and kind of move the money elsewhere. So I think you're right. It should have sold for more, but then again, I think there's extreme value in both of your guys' point in Vlad. And with that said, like for me, I do like chrome product over paper, but as a hobbyist, I want to say the Tatis foil is what I'd buy. But for me, from an investment standpoint, I think Vladdy is that Xfractor has a lot of eye appeal, and it could be a card that potentially has some legs just because it is so cheap too, right? So I'm gonna go Vladdy Xfractor over the Tatis right now.
Yes.
I do.
Hyung, I think he said Tatis in the original recording.
You know what? It goes.
I got you to come over.
It goes back and forth for me. I own both cards, right? Like for me, it's I love both cards too. I bought Vlad for like, I remember these raw cards are like $15. I got the $15-$20 Xfractor, or sorry, the grading. So like I've had a few of those Xfractors that I love, but it's at that point, would you buy in again at 500, right? If your initial buy-in was less than 50, right? So, but I like the eye appeal that Vladdy brings. The rainbow foil is nice, and I think it's so undervalued and gets no love, and it's unfortunate because one day I think that rainbow foil will pick up. And yeah, but right now I'm sitting on Vladdy because I'm bullish on Vladdy this year.
Nice. Yeah. Let's go on.
Yeah, people don't, like a lot of people don't realize too, is that Vladdy and Ohtani, like had they had the years that they had in 2020 when the card market was like bulletproof, like can you just imagine the ceiling and the floor of their investment prices? Like it would probably be at that Tatis Soto stratosphere. Right?
Ohtani went there.
What? Sorry. Ohtani actually did. He actually did go there. But I'm talking like, imagine like Ohtani Sapphire being the same price as like Acuna Sapphire, right?
Right.
Like, because these guys, their prices went up when the market was like quickly coming down. They were like the only two cards like really kind of like trying to go up against the grain. So you can only imagine if they just like, if the timing was different, like where their prices would be. So that's something that people shouldn't sleep on either, right? Like, especially like on Otani's case, I think the injury thing really kind of like prevents people from going all in. But for Vladdy, like that's something to all of these things to kind of weigh. Like really, like everybody says he's special. The pricing seems really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
Exciting. John, you want to go next?
Yeah. So I actually apologize, guys, but I changed mine slightly. I'm gonna bolster it because I know the original recording. I think I didn't challenge you guys enough. So we're gonna go 2016 Bowman first, Soto base auto BGS 9510, which goes for around $4,000, versus a Lewis Hamilton Topps Chrome Refractor PSA 10, which also goes for around $4,000. These two names have been in the upper stratosphere between the three of us in terms of popularity on who we want to try to buy right now. So I thought I'd put the top two right up against each other.
This one's tough. For me, I'm going to go Lewis Hamilton Refractor 10. Yeah, I don't know where F1's going, but that's what I think excites me. I think the safe bet is kind of like, if long term, I just want to hold it and kind of like enjoy it. I'm taking the Soto. I could see that Soto becoming quickly like Trout's Bowman Chrome first, kind of like that iconic go-to card for Soto. But I feel like I could always buy that, right? I've been wanting to be a purchaser of a Lewis Hamilton like PSA 10 refractor, and they're out there, but it's tough to, I guess, pull the trigger on one of them. Yeah, and get a good deal. So for me, I'm going Hamilton Refractor 10 on this because I don't know where it's going to go, and that kind of excites me a little more.
Okay. Well, do you remember what the original 1v1 was?
It was
I had it,
a pink refractor 10. Soto.
Yeah, I had a Soto pink PSA 10 versus a Lewis Hamilton refractor PSA 9 at around the $1,200 mark.
I think I went with
Soto was an easy winner at that one.
Soto?
For you guys. Yeah, because you guys didn't want the PSA 9.
I didn't want the PSA 9.
Yeah.
I feel like I said Lewis, but I'll have to go back to it because like even now I'm like, I know the Lewis Hamilton refractor pop count's like super low, right? Like for either PSA 9 or PSA 10. Is that right?
I don't think it's like super low, but yeah, it's less than 100 for sure.
Okay.
For both. Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, I guess relatively speaking to Juan Soto's first Bowman base auto, yeah, this is definitely harder than your previous 1v1. But I think, now that we have the news that Fanatics is taking over Topps, which owns F1, those F1 cards, and I mentioned earlier that I'm bullish on what Fanatics is going to do in the hobby space. I think that just further cements my decision to go with Lewis Hamilton. Topps Chrome Refractor PSA 10, especially with it being a PSA 10 low pop count and Lewis being the GOAT in his respective sport. Yeah, I'd like Hyung, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I feel like the momentum is there already for F1 to just take off, especially with the season they just had. And I think when that Netflix series comes out too, that's just only going to help the hype of the sport and consequently the impact on Topps Chrome F1 cards. So Lewis Hamilton, I would love to have one in my personal collection for that reason.
Nice.
I'm personally on the hunt. I think I mentioned it last episode. I'm on the hunt to try to get a Soto. But you guys over the past little while, ever since the card show, have really got me looking at Lewis Hamilton. And I am going to sweep it and also go with Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, I will change my mind. They're both iconic. They're going to be like both going to be the go-to cards. I do, in terms of like just personally from a collector standpoint, I think I like the iconic image refractor over the base auto, even though it is a Soto auto. I'm not really like a huge fan of that image, like the Soto image, where he looks like he's like a 12-year-old kid with like, you know, when you're like in T-ball wearing like a gigantic helmet. Like, I'm not. And like, you know, the Lewis Hamilton is also going to be iconic. I think both are pretty low pop, but like this kind of has that sort of like LeBron, you know, Topps Chrome rookie refractor, Kobe rookie refractor. It's got that kind of feel. And it has the pop count to back it up. And it, you know, Lewis Hamilton looks like he's going to go down as the greatest of all time. Schumacher fans might fight us on that, but I'm with it, man. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid and I'm picking the Hamilton.
Sweet. Hamilton, sweet. All right. Cool. I'll end off this week's 1v1, pick one, with Luka Doncic's Silver Prizm rookie PSA 10 and versus Luka Doncic's Panini Select light blue number to 299 PSA 10. They both, when I first mentioned this, they both went around 3,500. The Silver Prizm has actually gone to about 3,000 now. Wow. And sub 329, if I think it was the one last week or the week before. And the Select's still around 3,500, obviously, because it's numbered to 299, so you won't see that as much. But yeah, what are you going for at that price range?
What do you know what the Silver Prizm Pop is? It's over 1,000, right?
It's over 2,000.
2,000. Oh yeah. My goodness. But that's reasonable versus the light blue is numbered to 299, probably with a pop of what?
I think it's 30, like less than 60.
Okay.
It's like around 50 or something.
Man, honestly it tells me that obviously the Luka Select light blue is kind of like the steal at this price point, but something about the Prizm Silver of Luka's card is so iconic that, and I like the liquidity of it. I think that's important for Luka because his prices, I've seen them go from nothing to everything to nothing to everything and then nothing. So for me, seeing all that, it's like I think the liquidity of the light select blue, even though it's a color match, you might not get the money that you want at the time on low seasons, whereas a Silver Prizm is just whenever the market's good, you cash out, it's easy, you'll get what it's worth, right? So for me, I personally like the Silver Prizm PSA 10. I think it's a great card to have in your collection, and even though the pop count's high, the liquidity really excites me, and for sub, especially 3,000 at this point, 2,800, I like that buy.
Okay, so Silver Prizm.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I feel like Clark designed this question specifically for me because it's well documented that I have been long trying to get that Luka Select Concourse Light Blue. I'm biased because I'm still searching for it. I still haven't pulled the trigger, but it hasn't become a top priority anymore. But I'm gonna pick the light blue, and I think, but I'm gonna say that with not too much confidence because the Select brand has been really taking a hit. We theorized in a past show that Courtside may be sort of cannibalizing the other, Premier and Concourse within the Select brand, and that continues to kind of pummel the Select brand within itself. So I don't know where Select is going to end up, but I do like the low pop. And unfortunately, I own an MPJ light blue, Concourse blue, and I know how it looks, and it looks beautiful. Right, and it's like a quasi color match with the Dallas jersey. So in terms of like for just pure collecting, I think it makes all the sense in the world to get it. But on the flip side, what all the things that Hyung said, and we also talked about this before, how we don't know where parallel cards are going right now, right? But one thing you can kind of be certain on is the OG colors. People are going to gravitate towards gold. They're going to gravitate towards some of those OGs, and they're going to certainly in my opinion, going to come back and gravitate towards silver when all the other like higher, super low colored OG colors are unattainable, they're going to go back to the silver. And I think that 2000 pop or 2500 pop, whatever it is of Luka's like iconic prism, the silver is not enough. That's not enough pop. Like that's going to be a huge card, and I think that's a great buy. So I don't blame, and this is why I say I don't pick the light blue with confidence. I kind of pick it over like a personal bias. But you almost got me, Claire. I can't say that the silver choice is the wrong choice. Like yeah, it's a good one too.
Okay, light blue, not. I asked this because I also loved light blue, the quasi color match and the number. And we talked about this in our Hobby Logic episode way back when, probably one of our earlier episodes, where it just shouldn't make sense that the silver with a pop count of 2000 plus and its PSA 10 is that on par with the light blue, which is 60 and under for a PSA 10 and a numbered card too. So that being said, though, like what I've learned to appreciate, especially with you guys, is the liquidity factor of cards, and I'm always in that flipping mode now. Like I was kind of quiet early in 2021 just because the market was so hot and it was hard to find deals in general, and right. I wasn't really buying, but the guys in the WhatsApp chat group will know, like the Q4 of 2021 I feel like a lot of us were going on buying frenzies because we see the dip and we're going in. We're going in to get the good deals. So I think it's because I'm in that frame of mind where I'm looking for deals. I'm looking to flip. I like the liquidity of the cards that so I'm actually going to go with the silver prism. And it's iconic as well. That image, like it's Hobby Logic still to me, that it's not numbered and, and then it's what the price is. But with some cards you just can't fight the market. The market is the market. And if you look at Card Ladder, there's sales almost daily of that silver prism PSA 10, right? So I like that. Doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. So I like it, and the price point being sub 3 makes it even an easier decision for me to go with the silver prism. But I would love to have both. But for this pick one, I'm going silver. All right.
Nice.
All right. Thanks, guys, for joining us for our first full episode of 2022. Thanks to all our subscribers and followers of Cards to the Moon. You can always follow us on Instagram at Cards to the Moon. And if you haven't subscribed, we really appreciate you doing so you can get notifications for our new episodes every Tuesday morning. And if you have a question for us, if you have any issues that you'd like to hear us talk about, or if you have a pick one of your choice that we can debate on air, you can always email us at hello@fivecardguys.com or even DM us at Cards to the Moon on our Instagram page. All right, thanks guys again, and we'll see you next week. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.